Hi, everyone. Oops. Stay back. Hello. There's somebody who used to say that on something or another. Hello, and I forget the next word, but that's okay. Thank you all for coming, and I understand that we have our quorum is 8. And I can count exactly to 8. 9 coming in. 10? I see 9. Where's 10? Maybe I can't count. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Oh, one of the people up here is an aide. And your name is, I forget. What? Emily. So we appreciate Emily too. So let's go ahead and get started. And we will start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Steve, would you like to lead? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. And now we'll go around and do introductions, starting with the committee. Debbie, would you like to start?
I'm Debbie Toth, representing service providers in Central Contra Costa County.
Michael Dowgelli, East County Paratransit user.
Laramie Bowron with the County Connection.
Steve Pont, Tri-Delta Transit.
Janet Abelson, representing West County Consumers, and I'm the chair.
Mallory Brush, AC Transit.
Janet Bilbis, City of El Cerrito.
Vicki Wojciechowski, City of San Pablo.
Misha Parr for the City of Richmond, representing Lori Reese Brown. She's not able to make it today.
Michael Hopfe, Independent Living Resources of Contra Costa and Solano Counties.
Okay, and let's see here. Okay, so now we'll go to staff.
Peter Engel, CCTA staff.
Irene Ortega, CCTA staff.
And now we'll go to the audience, starting with Sharon, I think.
I'm Sharon Kagan, and I'm Paratransit from Antioch.
Carol McCrary, Contra Costa ARC throughout Contra Costa County.
Welcome.
Glenn Fix, Golden Ring Foundation.
Great.
Ty Boyle, Senior Helpline Services.
Good to see you back. Okay, did we get everybody? Who did I miss? I'm sorry, they were hiding in the back row here. Okay, well, welcome everybody. With that, we will go on to the minutes of January the 26th. And they are?
Madam Chair, there's item 3, public comments.
I'm sorry. Thanks. So the next item on the agenda should be, and is listed as public comments, which is an opportunity for members of the public to speak on items that are not on the agenda. If you'd like to speak on an item on the agenda, you can do so when we're discussing that item. Are there any people who want to speak on items not on the agenda? Okay, not seeing any. We will close that item and move on to the minutes of January 26th. Does anybody have a comment or a motion? Yes.
It's just that number 12, where I mentioned about issues, I just wanted to make sure that my point was that it involved seniors as they get older having issues with doors closing early and that sort of thing. That was the point.
Item 12?
Yeah, item 12 in the minutes. Yeah, just to clarify that that's what issues.
You didn't act, there's nothing here about you saying anything on 12 right now?
There's a second 12.
Oh yeah, that's my problem.
There's 2 11s, too.
So
12A.
So would you like, as part of that, to include a correction on the numbering?
Well, it's just to make sure that the issue was that seniors, have issues regarding the doors closing early.
Okay,
and
would
that
you
sort
also like to include that there are two 11s and 12s, and that needs to be corrected?
of- Make that to 11A and 12A.
They-
Yes.
We'll renumber.
We'll renumber.
Okay.
We'll take everything out back and flog it later.
Everybody gets one mistake, right, Peter? She probably used the computer to do it, and it failed her. Are there any other corrections to the minutes?
I move the minutes be adopted with the said corrections.
Okay.
I second.
There was a first by Steve and a second by Michael, right? And all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any objection or any abstentions? Motion carried unanimously. Okay, with that, we move on to consideration of a new member, Joshua Sullivan. And he's not here.
He's not here, so this is a little bit awkward, but he was here last month, and we had talked about him taking Penny Musanti's place from the Developmental Disabilities Council, but the item wasn't on the agenda for action, so we're bringing it back to you now. He actually gave a presentation both on Developmental Disabilities Council as well as Futures Explored. He called me Friday. He got called to some type of a workshop or something on paratransit issues, and he said he will that kind of stuff hardly ever happens. He was very embarrassed, but he couldn't be here today. So we're still bringing the item forward to officially add him to the PCC
And that works with our bylaws?
membership. Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. So, Debbie?
So I'll make the motion to have him come on to the PCC in place of Penny Musanti.
Okay. Who retired? Yes. Okay. And is there a second to the motion?
I'll second it.
Okay, so there was a motion by Debbie, seconded by Mallory, to add Joshua Sullivan to the PCC in the slot called,
It's under one of the agencies, and he would just continue to represent Developmental Disabilities Council.
okay, where it says vacant
Right.
on our list. Okay, so, any conversation on that? Anything from the audience? Okay. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any objections, any abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. I wanted to bring up a couple of other things on this agenda item. So he is elected then, and we look forward to actually seeing him again next time in that slot. There's another person who has applied, Sharon here, and so we need to set up a subcommittee meeting to consider her application. This is actually her second time here, and she has turned in an application. She got it right there. She is turning in, as we speak, an application. And we need to form a subcommittee, so we need at least, how many members minimum? I'll be on it.
Usually there's 4.
4? Okay. Isn't it usually an odd number?
You can make it 5. Depends on how many people you get there.
Okay. What about 3 is what I thought it was more like 3. Or 4, I don't know. Let's just make it 4. To consider him as, or her, Sharon rather, as a member, a consumer member from East County representing seniors, right? Is that right, Sharon? Okay. And we usually hold it right before the PCC meeting. So what this would mean is that if you're on this committee, that you would just simply come to the PCC meeting early next time.
So I just might clarify for the PCC that setting up these subcommittees is one of the duties of the chair and doesn't require PCC action. That's why we're mentioning it now. I think the chair is just going to see if anybody wants to volunteer to be on that subcommittee.
Okay.
I think
Okay.
Tom would be a good choice.
Pardon?
Tom would be a good choice.
Tom. What?
Tom Reyes.
Who is Tom?
Yeah, he'd be on the committee.
From Tri-Delta.
Tri-Delta.
Steve says alternate. He's volunteering.
He's volunteering his dad.
Wait, he's not here to know that he can even come. That won't work very well. Wait a minute, he's from Tri-Delta? So he would come next time instead of you?
Yes.
To the PCC, so he would, okay, so.
He's the regular. Tom is the regular.
This could work on more than one thing, you know, Steve. So his name is Tom, and what's his last name?
Reyes.
How do you spell it?
H-A-R-A-I-S.
H-A-R-I-A-S.
And Tom is the regular representative. Steve is just here as an alternate today.
Okay, meaning he was unable to come. But he won't be unable next time, huh? And that's half an hour early?
Yes.
Okay, so that's 2. And are there any, okay. Okay. Oh, okay, perfect. See? And you are Mike, and I forgot your last name. How do you spell that? G-E-L-L-I. Okay.
Well, I don't know if there's a protocol, Madam Chair, but both the representatives thus far are from East County, and we're considering an East County applicant.
So maybe you should volunteer to make it.
Balance them?
Yes.
I guess I could do that.
Okay, Mallory. Okay, so that means you all have to be, and this is just a statement I'm making that I can make as chair, is that means you are all going to be here on time, a half an hour early next time, and somebody will remind everybody, including me.
Irene will let everybody know.
Okay, and you'll also remind Sharon, right? So she'll know to do that. But Sharon's coming with those folks, maybe? So that works perfectly, actually. Okay, and we have enough people. We have 4, the magic 4, thanks to Mallory's wonderful participation. Do you have an alternate in case you can't come? Who? Kim? Okay, so one of you will be here even though you're dying and on your deathbed and all that. Okay, good. Thank you. Okay, and I think that's all we needed to do on this agenda item, or is there another one?
I think you want to just mention the vacancies
right.
that exist in the.
Right, so there are, if you look at the list of people who are on this committee, first of all, it isn't quite accurate, apparently. It's page 5, so if you turn to page 5, you'll see the word vacant in a number of places. And the first category is paratransit riders. So I would like to request as chair of the operators in West County, other than El Cerrito, because El Cerrito already has a paratransit rep, and that is me. So we don't want to have it just be El Cerrito. So that would be Vicky, and that would be, I'm blanking on your name. You're Vicky. Misha. Okay, your signs are wrong. Okay. Okay, I just am not seeing right. It looks like the sign I can't read from, I guess that's Janet's sign, needs to be moved over this way. Yes. Oh, that helps on all the signs. Then I can actually see them. Maybe I'll get the names right. Okay, so your name is Misha. Okay, so I'll write that down. If you could look in your paratransit consumer committees, or not committees, community, for some people to be in those slots. So I could fill either a senior slot or a disabled slot. I happen to be both. But so we need a minimum of 3 people altogether, 2 more, in other words. So if you can find senior or disabled, either way they need to be a paratransit user. Okay. And if you could maybe give Peter a call?
Yes.
Okay. or Irene, okay? And then we can set them up with a process, which is to do they come to a meeting and then they come again, right? And at that second meeting, they come probably early for an interview. And then we consider their application. And then at could be that same day or next meeting.
So they would come to one meeting just to see how everything goes, and then they can submit their application, and then we could have the same subcommittee meet at the next meeting.
Appointing
prior
a
to the next
subcommittee,
meeting.
it's just there every time that happens.
Yes.
There's a subcommittee. So you might want to tell him that, Steve. Tom, I don't have the name right. Yeah. Anyway, we just need some more people from West County. They can be in either slot. And is that clear? And okay. And do you folks know of people that might be willing to do that? Okay. And Misha, do you? Misha, I'm sorry. Vicki, do you know of anyone? I'll ask. Okay. Maybe, if not, maybe Rita knows, if you could ask her. Sure. She's pretty good.
Probably has some friends.
Yeah. And because she gets around in that community, I know. And she's just recovering from some surgery, by the way. That's why she's...
Some non-anesthesia surgery.
Yes, we all heard that, huh? Yeah. Anyway, yes, but she is recovering, but she's just wanting to make sure everything's okay. Okay, so, and then Westcat is not here, right?
Correct.
Is there a way to contact them and ask them to do that also? Okay, thanks. And then Central County, that would be you, Laramie. And I have a real hard time with names sometimes. Anyway, can you do the same thing for your community? You need 3 slots filled. You can either have 2 paratransit and 1 senior, or 2 seniors and 1. I'm sorry, 2 seniors and 1 disabled, or the other way.
Okay.
And then if you could contact Irene when you find somebody, and about any help you need in doing that. Okay. And then East County just has 1 slot. No, 2, right? Because D is no longer on the committee, right?
Correct. So
There's 2 slots.
there's currently 2 slots, and we have an application for one of them.
And Michael, you're in a senior slot? Okay. So you need 1 senior, 1 disabled, or 2 disabled.
Sharon is senior, so we need a disabled.
Oh, so you're from East County, that's right. So we'd need a disabled. Okay. And, okay. So you'll all look around, and could we put this on the agenda for reporting on the results of those searches? Great. Okay, and that will really help. And, okay.
Question for clarification. Do the seniors and people with disabilities need to be paratransit riders?
Yes, I forgot to say that. Thank you. So anybody who's put on this committee in the consumer slots needs to be a paratransit rider. Okay, so are we ready to move on then? I think so. The next item is the Measure J Program 15 claim.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So this item is, we're getting ready to gear up for the Measure J Program 15, which is the countywide transportation services for seniors and people with disabilities. We also generally include, at the request of WICTAC and West County, information on the Program 20B, which is the West County. Even though WICTAC makes the ultimate decision, staff there would like the applications turned in or the claims made at the same time that they do the countywide claims, just so they can process the administrative part of it, and so that the PCC can see what they're proposing to do in West County. So on page 13 is the schedule. So the end of March, I will get the claim forms out. Those are pretty much ready to go. I know what the funding level will be, at least I found out today the estimate for the total transportation sales tax, and it has gone up. Operators will be happy to hear that. April 24th, 2015, claims will be due back to me. And then we need a PCC subcommittee to review the claims and interview the claimants. And that needs to be done. It'll be one day, but it needs to be done between April 29th and May 1st. So, Madam Chair, you can appoint another subcommittee for this. Please make it people that are available on those days for generally one full day.
Whatever days we pick.
Whichever one of the 3 days.
So it's for one day only?
It's one day only, and there's that 4-day period where we can get one day. So,
which are, could you say
April
those?
29th through May 1st, which is a Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. May 18th, the recommendation of the subcommittee will come back here to your May 18th meeting for approval and recommendation to the Authority Planning Committee June 3rd and the full Authority Board on June 17th, so that we can get the allocation available to send out the first quarter out to the operators when the fiscal year starts in July.
Okay. Okay, so the only thing here is the action of appointing the subcommittee?
Well, accepting the schedule and the process. The process is basically the same as we've done for the last several years.
Okay.
And then appointing the subcommittee.
The overall schedule?
Correct.
Okay. So is there any comment on the schedule?
Very short period of time.
Yeah, I know that those days I'm actually out of town the whole time.
Okay.
That the 29th of April through May 1st. So, but that's an external schedule?
The schedule is generally established because we want to give the claimants, the paratransit operators, as much time as we can to do the claim forms. And so we get those back on the 24th. That gives me a few days to kind of compile them and get them together and get them out to the subcommittee members so they can look at them in advance. And then we need to, so May 18th is your meeting. We need to have the agenda and item ready to go a week prior to that to get it in the mail. So that's kind of what drives the schedule.
Okay. So right now we're looking for people to be on this committee. How many?
You probably want at least 2 and hopefully 3.
Okay. So we need volunteers?
Correct.
Okay. Debbie? Thank you. So who wants to join Debbie? Janet? So Janet Bilbus? Okay. And Michael? Okay. Okay. And so do we want to leave it at that, or anybody else? Okay. So it's really important that everybody. Shall we let the people on the committee pick which of those 4 days?
The ideal thing right now would be if we could get a date out of one of those 3 days, if people have their schedules and know.
Okay.
Okay.
What's that date?
The 30th?
The 30th, so April 30th.
Gotta get back to that. We feed you lunch.
I know. That's why I said
9 to 3 is probably will work.
It depends on the number of applicants partly, doesn't it?
Always the same. There's 7 operators, so it's all.
It's this one, that one. Okay. Okay.
9 to 3, yeah, here.
Okay, so that item is done, I believe. Great. So the next item on the,
We need to take action on the schedule.
oh, okay. So is there a motion to adopt the schedule?
I move the schedule as stated.
Okay, that's Michael, and is there a second?
Second.
Okay, is there any public comment, by the way, on this item? Okay, seeing none. I'm sorry, the second was, I didn't quite catch the sound where it was.
From Steve.
Steve?
Yep.
Okay, so Michael made the motion, Steve made the second. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any objections, any abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. Okay, with that, we move on to the next item, which is a presentation by the Contra Costa ARC.
Yeah, so Carol's going to come up here and I'll move and she can sit and she's going to give you a presentation on Contra Costa ARC and generally what they do and what some of their transportation issues and successes are.
Let me know if my head is in the way. There's a thing here that I can see. Yes, Major J at work. Yes.
Good afternoon. I'm Carol McCrary. As Peter said, thank you for inviting me. It's nice to see some familiar faces. I know we run across each other from time to time, most recently in the 5310 group applications, and that was fun. Contra Costa ARC has been around for a long time, and no problem. It was started by a parent who put an ad in the Contra Costa Times back in the early 60s. He wrote an ad saying he wanted to meet other people with children with disabilities. And he got about 12 responses. And the moms of those kids put together a child care co-op on their own. So one day a week, all the kids went to one house. Another day a week, they all went to another house. And finally, in 1965, they incorporated as a nonprofit as Contra Costa Association for Retarded Children. And we've evolved over 50 years. This is our 50th anniversary. And we've evolved incredibly. The Contra Costa ARC now stands for Advocacy, Respect, and Commitment. Our mission statement says we're here, we always will be, and we're very dedicated and mission-driven to serve the needs of the people with developmental disabilities in Contra Costa County. And you probably heard from Josh last time about developmental disabilities. Josh is a collaborator of Contra Costa ARC, and Penny and I have done some collaboration. Penny Masante and I have done some collaboration in getting more services together in the county. most significantly is all of the children and adults that we serve have intellectual disabilities, and usually something else. There are state and federal definitions for developmental disabilities, the main being an intellectual disability, severe epilepsy, cerebral palsy, and neurological. For example, we had a person who was kicked in the head by a horse when he was 10 and had severe brain damage from that accident. Because it happened under the age of 18 and what caused a very significant disability, it was considered a developmental disability. The largest growing population that we serve are folks with autism. And as you might have heard, that's a huge spectrum of people. I know one young man who is probably going to go to Yale and wants to work for NASA, and he will. He's very, very intellectually capable of that. There are other people that are totally dysfunctional and don't speak, are incontinent, and everything in between. Contra Costa ARC has a wide variety of services for that. We serve children up to age 5 in early intervention programs, and they come from 2 different realms. One that have social delays and developmental delays already been diagnosed. Another group have social, emotional, and behavioral challenges, and they might be on the autism spectrum, and they need some more assessment, more treatment. They get speech therapy, they get occupational therapy, they get physical therapy. So we have large programs in Oakley, Pittsburgh, Concord, and Richmond as well at the George Miller Center. Yes? Right. Right. No. Well, of course, if they're born with Down syndrome, yes, that's apparent. But also, we are assessing the children. Some born of drug-addicted moms, some with fetal alcohol syndrome, some with Down syndrome, some that have gone through a whole lot of surgeries and have significant motor, speech, and language delays. And so the focus of our early intervention programs with the children is to either put them back, graduate them to schools, to special education classes, to Head Start, to wherever they're going to go. But
so you don't need a diagnosis, you can do a full assessment and determine whether or not they need your services?
They have to have delays in at least 3 areas in order for us to serve them, and for us to get the funding for children's services, either through mental health or the Regional Center of the East Bay. Yeah. We have a group of moms that are really incredible. They do family support. It's called Care Parent Network. These moms all have kids with disabilities, and they support other families that have a child with disabilities. They have a dad support group. There's a high incidence of divorce in families that have a child with a disability. They do sibling support groups. They'll go to the hospital being called by the nurse to help a mom get through the grieving portion of having a child that's not normal, if they know it right away. They'll go to school IEPs and advocate for the child to get the right services through the school district. So they're quite dynamic, sponsor a lot of seminars for families, and is totally run by grants. So all the services are free to families. We also have 2 after-school programs for kids with disabilities between the ages of 11 and 22. And one is at the George Miller Center in Richmond, and one is at the George Miller Center in Concord. We have a huge employment service division that has production operations in Antioch, Concord, and Richmond called Commercial Support Services. So if you have a job that needs to be done, they have automated mass mailing machines. They have heat sealing operations. They do a lot of different type of work at their production centers. And then they also provide community employment support to people. So getting people employed at Safeway, at Wells Fargo Bank. We have probably 300 people employed in the community that we support. And then the final division at Contra Costa ARC is the Community Access Services. And I am the division director of that division, Community Access Services, and I oversee 10 different services throughout Contra Costa County for the most severely and multiply handicapped folks that we serve. And I'll talk a little bit more about that because I'm the one that's applying for all the 5310 vehicles. You betcha. Absolutely. We also have home-based services that are teaching the families how to do their own physical therapy, how to encourage language and speech for families that don't want to have their child go to a center-based program. The whole premise around early intervention services is not to promote a label for a child, but to help the families and the child get over the delays. And we have lots of success stories in that way where I know a family that has 2 children with autism. One no longer has a label of autism. Maybe he was misdiagnosed. He had certain delays that were very similar to his brother. His brother clearly has an autism diagnosis. So it's helping the moms, helping the family, and providing the therapies to the child. Typically, our funding for early intervention services comes from a variety of, sometimes a school will refer a child to us and we'll get funding from the school district. Regional Center of the East Bay will do an assessment and may fund children. County Mental Health may refer a children. I don't know. I don't believe so. And various other First Five funds as well. For our adult services, most of our funding comes from the Regional Center of the East Bay and the Department of Rehabilitation, especially in employment services. We serve totally, we're the largest provider of services for people with developmental disabilities in Contra Costa County. We serve about 1,000 people per day. And we have programs located in Oakley, Antioch, Pittsburgh, Concord, Martinez, Richmond. And with the closure of Agnew State Hospital in San Jose, we are now providing home-based services to very, very medically fragile folks in Fremont, Union City, Hayward, Castro Valley, parts of Contra Costa County as well.
How is that funded? How is that funded?
I'm sorry?
How is that funded?
Through Regional Center of the East Bay. Mm-hmm.
And that's through your Contra Costa ARC.
Yes. We responded to a grant, and some of the folks that left Agnew State Hospital had to be placed in their home community where they came from before they were committed. And so we have some in Contra Costa County and also some in Alameda County.
What's your average budget per year?
Per year?
Ballpark.
20 million.
Okay.
Not enough.
Okay.
Yes. So in my department, the Community Access Services, I work with the folks with the most severe and multiple disabilities. And it requires a really high level of supervision. We do anything from 1-to-1 supervision to 1-to-3 supervision due to medical and behavioral concerns. Some of the folks that we serve may come with a full-time nurse. So our goal is have the people be as much in the community as possible, live, work, and play in the community. And some folks travel with a full-time nurse, sometimes a respiratory therapist because they have a tracheostomy that we're, as lay persons, are unable to handle. We work with people that are blind, plus the intellectual disability, plus possibly autism. They may be nonverbal, have uncontrolled seizures that turn out to be a 911 call if there is a seizure. We do colostomy care, feeding tubes.
I'm sorry, I'm having a hard, can't seem to, there we go.
Turn it off, yeah.
I was supposed to get to where I could, through the store so I could figure out how to operate this better, and I didn't make it there today. So
Oh, goodness.
I apologize.
Goodness. So we've relied on the 5310 program since the 80s, I mean, for a really long time, to provide our accessible vehicles. When I came to work for Contra Costa ARC in 1984, we had 2 5310 vehicles. We currently are operating 41. And we average about 343 service hours per day and over 1,200 one-way passenger trips per day. So we're busy, we're out there, we're doing a lot of things.
Are all of your vehicles 5310?
No, we have other types of vehicles as well. We have services that are totally community-based. That means the folks are pretty healthy, mainly ambulatory, and we can lease minivans to serve those folks. They're full-time. They're going to adult education classes. They're going. They have part-time employment. The county of Contra Costa County employs them in their recycling center part-time. Plus, they do a lot of recreational things. They failed at employment for one reason or another, and it operates at a 1-to-3 ratio. We also have the opposite end of the spectrum, as I was saying, the folks from Agnews Developmental Center who we travel with them with a nurse and sometimes a respiratory therapist. So there's more helpers on the vehicle than consumers. We encourage folks to do normal things in the community, do their own grocery shopping, eat out, do their own laundry, handle money management as much as they can. We have many groups that deliver Meals on Wheels throughout Contra Costa County. I think we have about 12 routes in which we deliver meals with, of course, very high level of supervision. We also volunteer at the Contra Costa Food Bank and at the, we do a lot of recycling. We have recycling bins in a lot of different businesses that we collect on a weekly basis. We also enjoy a lot in the community as far as bowling, parks, movies, museums, other tours, A's games, farmers markets, wherever we can go. I almost put a picture in here of a group of folks touring the Budweiser factory, and one of the guys is wearing a Corona t-shirt, and I'm surprised they let him in. So that's a thumbnail sketch of all the things that Contra Costa ARC does. It's quite inspiring. It's quite uplifting and a lot of fun.
Great.
Other questions?
I'm sorry I missed the middle term. We have a little emergency happening at work, but I was curious. Do you get some of your transportation funding from the regional center or no?
Yes. Some of you know, you pick up some of our folks and take them to Camp Antioch or the George Miller Center or commercial support services through your paratransit involvement. We also have 3 contracts with the regional center where we pick up some folks and bring them to a facility as well. And then we have about 125 folks that we pick up and they stay in the community full time with us in our own vehicles. Those are all paid for by the regional center under escorted transportation, yes.
So but you still have to provide funding to buy the vehicles, maintain the vehicles, and do that somehow in that budget.
Exactly.
Do you know what your cost per trip is?
I couldn't tell you. Depend.
These are questions that we go through. I ask the questions, these are questions that we go through when we do our Measure J claims review, which is what we were talking about earlier. And I think that in moving forward, we as a body, the PCC, and we also as consumers and providers of services need to be thinking about the needs of the populations that we serve. And we need to be thinking about funding and ensuring that that continues to be available. And when we know our cost per trip, we can also leverage money that way. If it costs us less money to provide it, or if we have more appropriate staff to be providing the ride, or things like that. So that's why I asked that question, because those are things we look at. We need to make sure, particularly in light of conversations around the reauthorization of Measure J funding, that these things are talked about. And
I can certainly, if it'll help you in your negotiations. Yes, yes, yeah. If it will help you with your negotiations, I can provide that information to you, Debbie. Yeah.
just getting everybody who's providing that. The reason that I bring it up is that there was I will say, a culture of thought when I began working in this industry in 2002 that the transportation that's provided to people with disabilities and seniors is a social service, and it's not transportation. And that kind of thinking is not accurate. And in order for people with disabilities and seniors who need specialized transportation to be included in transportation budgets, it needs to be understood that that's a transportation service. And so we, as providers of service, need to be talking the same language that they are in terms of what our cost per trip is and what we have to do to include in that kind of thing. Sorry, I'll go for one.
Yes, sir.
I would, to dovetail on what you sense is sort of the same topic, I would really like to compliment what you say about we stretch our budget as far as it can be stretched. We don't cut corners, but we cut back expenses, and we make every dollar. I think that is so incredibly well worded that it shows where your heart is, and I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Are there other questions from the committee? Peter.
I'm just curious here. So you have 41 vehicles. How's the maintenance and taking care on those, and potentially drivers? How are they trained?
Our drivers are our direct care folks. They have dual purposes. We have our own internal drivers training, but we also have a huge training program for our personnel. We've offered it to people outside of our agency. It's called ARC University, and it's a series of 11 classes about people with disabilities. There's a whole one-day class on autism. There's a whole one-day class on crisis intervention. And anyone can enroll in those classes if you ever have drivers that you want some remedial or positive coursework. They're open to everybody. So our drivers are our direct care folks. Maintenance is costly. We haven't found, we use several auto repair places. We never know if we're getting the right answer or not. It's all very expensive. Would love help with that. and exactly. That's why I was on the Mobility Management Committee with you. Yes. Yes.
Okay. Let's see. Any more questions?
Well, I was just going to ask if we could have your contact information later.
Absolutely. Yes.
Or now, whenever.
Okay. I have cards in my purse.
Okay, great.
So
Thank you.
I'll stay for the end of the meeting, and yes, you can have my card.
Any other from the committee? Any other questions? Okay, going to the audience. Do you have any questions or comments? Okay, Debbie's been making comments already, but is there anyone else who wants to add? Or Debbie, do you have more comments?
And I know that Josh will do a bang-up job on your committee. Well,
Okay.
representing the Developmental Disabilities Council and community.
Well,
Thank you.
I think we've all enjoyed your presentation and appreciate you taking the time to come and join us and do the presentation. Thank you.
My pleasure.
And I'm sure it took a fair amount of time to prepare. So thank you for that. Okay. So our next item is agenda item number 8, which is the advisory committee minutes format revision. And there's an example attached, which is on page 15.
Yes, that's correct. So all of CCTA's advisory committees, of which PCC is one, has moved to a summary action minute format, which there's a sample provided on page 16 and 17. This was for our Citizens Advisory Committee. Basically what it shows is the agenda item, the action that took place, and who made, I think it says, who made the motion and seconded it, but it doesn't give the detail of each of the items. The reason that we've done this is our administrative staff is spending a lot of time doing minutes, and so we're trying to find ways where we still meet the letter of the law in providing minutes as summary action minutes, but save them some time. And the reason we're able to do this is we've moved to a system online where people can access the audio, the actual audio of the meetings. You're being streamed right now to the public, and then those are recorded, and we use what's called the Granica system, and you can see we've pulled up. Why don't you go back to where they can find it on our webpage. So I'll have Irene start. I just wanted to show this to you so you can see that there is an option for both you and the public. If you want to go back and get the details of each of the minutes, they are available. So this is our webpage, Get Involved, Public Meetings, and then you can see right there their upcoming events. And if you scroll down, I think is all the archived. It says videos. That's unfortunately Granicus does videos, but in our case the videos are just the audio tape, or the audio portion. One of the nice things about it is you can scroll down just a little bit. Our agenda's there on the right, you can see, and then on the left, underneath the little audio window, which if we had cameras would actually be video. Can you scroll down here? Maybe this isn't a good example. In most cases on archived item, it shows all of the agenda items are also under where it says current items, and so you can just click on whichever item. So maybe you don't want to sit there and listen to, 2 hours of meeting for for one item. You can just click on that particular item, and the audio will jump to that spot, so you can just listen to the one. So that's the current preferred alternative for people who want to listen to the full record and not have the admin staff take the time on the detail of the minutes.
Okay.
Does that make sense to everybody?
This is my report of the SRA. So now let's move on to introductions, starting with the members of the committee. Laramie, do you want to start?
Yes. Laramie Bowern with the County Section.
Quick comment on items not on the agenda. It's an opportunity for members of the public to speak on items that now move on to the minutes of November the 17th.
So Irene's just skipping through a couple so you can see how it jumps to the next item.
Quorum, right? So it would do that?
I'm sorry?
We did not have a quorum in
If you click on the next item, like click on 4 or click on 6.
It sounded like it got cut off.
Yeah, there was. You don't have to listen to it.
I can't.
So in that case, it just moved to item 6, so you can just listen to that one particular item if you want.
I guess I need to stop saying, Here's it. Here it is.
So anyway, this is just something we wanted to bring to you and get your approval on so that we can continue to make our administrative time a little bit more efficient here at the authority.
Yeah, it's not.
And just go to this summary action minutes that's shown here.
There I went, again. I guess
We
I'll
are,
come
we
back.
are, I will add that our board committees, both the planning and APC administration projects committee and the full board are going to continue to do complete minutes. But so right now they're just proposing that the advisory committees go to this summary action.
So I,
Correct. All advisory. Matter of fact, they've all already done it except PCC.
I have a question, Peter. I thought I had left my packet at home. Turns out I hadn't. But so I was looking online on the way here to try to find it, and I found that it was really hard to find the agenda at all because the path to it wasn't at all what I thought it would be, and I forget what the path is now that I forget the path that I took, but it was not very clear what that path would be.
Well, that's good feedback.
And that would probably be across all committees. So to get to the point where I did find it, but it took a lot of work.
Okay.
And searching in places that I didn't think were the right places. But the other thing is that when I got to the agenda, there was no place to go look for anything else in the packet. I was expecting to find, there's an I guess I'm getting a lot of training here, listening. Sorry. The thing that I also noticed, since we're on this topic, is that the printed pack and perhaps the reason I'm doing some of those is because you go to the printed packet, so then you have to go do a search for the minutes, and there's no indication where those are. The thing that would, of course, help would be a page number there. That would be really helpful if that's possible to add that in.
Yeah, we used to do that. I don't know why we stopped.
It's really hard to find.
We used to put the page numbers on each of the items.
On the front page, the agenda page. That would help. But I couldn't find in the place that I got to anything other than the agenda, I think. Unless it was there and I just didn't go far enough.
So getting involved, I think also, I can't remember off the top of my head where all the items are.
Well, see, that actually is my point.
There's a lot of digging that you're doing to get somewhere.
Right, you're having the same problem I was having, I think. What? I had a lot of trouble.
So, yeah, we'll always have suggestions to Lindsay, who kind of oversees the webpage.
Uh-huh.
Bring that up, I think it's under both Get Involved and under What's New, and then go under.
What's new to me would not be where I would expect to find it. And
Subcommittees might be, advisory committees might be, meetings might be.
yeah, meetings.
Agenda and minutes?
Yeah? Oh, gosh.
I'm a little bit more direct.
Uh-huh.
There are accessibility standards for public websites. And I will say that the Employment and Human Services Division of Contra Costa County just updated their website, and the Advisory Council on, the Aging and Adult Services Bureau updated theirs, including their HICAP website, and they have a volunteer who made everything completely accessible on there, and there's a certain font requirement and yada, yada, yada. And I wonder if items pertaining to accessibility might have that same requirement on this site. It's something to look into.
Well, there
because-
is, I believe,
Section 508, everything.
there is something, there is a requirement. It's not it should not have to be a requirement of this agency to do that. There already is a requirement. Do you know what it is, Mallory?
Section 508.
So anyway, getting back to what you're saying, there is a requirement. Are you suggesting perhaps that this volunteer might be asked to check out some of the authorities' stuff and see if it is or something? Is that what you're saying? A nod? I can't tell.
Yes.
Okay.
I'm suggesting that I don't think it meets with that, and that there might be a way to do this that there's certainly, it's lacking logical leaps, but I also think accessibility-wise for people with macular degeneration, for total loss of vision, for all kinds of things, there needs to be better access. I don't have any issue with the meeting minutes being abbreviated, and I would move to have that adopted. I think
Why
we're
don't we
looking
get
at a
that
different
over,
issue.
and if that's a motion, and is there a second to Debbie's motion? That would be done by Michael. So are there any comments from the audience on the motion? Are there any comments from the board? Okay, so why don't we vote on that, and then we'll get back to that other discussion. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any objections, any abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. So are you wanting to make a follow-up suggestion, Debbie, maybe in line, or would it be Mallory who knows a little more about it, maybe?
Can I make a suggestion? And I'm not blowing this off. I do want to hear this, but maybe one of our agenda items for our next meeting is to have our government affairs person, Lindsay, who kind of worked with the consultants to design the webpage, as well as Granicus, who's the company that does this agenda part. Maybe we can get some information from them. Granicus basically does this for cities, counties, government agencies. That's what they do. So I suspect that they do meet the public requirements for accessibility. There just may be, I can't answer that. So let me mention it to Lindsay and get her input. And it might be more productive to just have the full discussion on this when she's here and can hear directly.
Okay, but I'm wondering more specifically if somebody couldn't just sort of check it over and see if there's even a need for that. Maybe there isn't, I can't tell. I always look at it. Things like that on my phone and how you could, it just sort of like does a lot of things.
I'll do that. And
all by itself. So I don't.
At the time this was being developed, I brought that up. There's obviously, ADA requirements associated with this webpage, and our consultant was well aware of those and said that they will be fully compliant. So they need to point out to us where the potential issues are and where they aren't. And I will mention all this to Lindsay, and she can work on it, and then at our next meeting,
Okay.
we can
I'm
go
actually
through it in more
suggesting that somebody look to see if they did it right, and if they did it wrong, they may not know it. How would we, that
That's what
help
I'll
us?
do. I'll give Lindsay your concerns, and she can check into it. So
Okay.
the next meeting, she can bring those back as well as here.
So I'm suggesting, because I heard Mallory say something about that, and I think I've heard this come up there, that they might have somebody who knows more, or maybe the person that Debbie's talking about is that person. I'm not really sure which it is, but I'm just suggesting that the staff here contact them and just see, or we could first ask here, is there actually any technical knowledge that you know of? Like, does AC Transit have some?
I'm lucky to open my email, so I am not your gal.
Okay.
But there is a filter that the consultants, and if in a contract it says they have to comply with all federal, state, local, blah, 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 and that is a 508 filter that gives you your ADA compliant standards.
So you can look it up online or something?
Well, it's different overlaying standards for the ADA website, specifically accessibility beyond what public websites have. I think that was why the Employment and Services Division just went through another one, there's another flavor standard. But I have access to that information.
Okay.
And I can get it to Peter what my concerns are.
Okay. But maybe there's concerns that you haven't caught, because,
Or if we could get the contact at Employment Human Services, that we can
right.
see what they just went through.
And that she check with them. And, I mean, because just coming to us and talking about it isn't necessarily getting us anywhere, because we here may not know all the details of it, of the ADA requirement, but somebody else may. I'm sure they do. Anyway, so what is the follow-up you're proposing again?
So I'm gonna talk to Lindsay about the concerns that were expressed here. Have her follow up with, if Debbie can get me the contact at the county that went through this, then she can follow up with them, as well as Granicus, who does this for public agencies, and Barbary Coast, who did our website design and stuff for us, and find out, how they address certain things. And then I'm also going to talk to Lindsay about maybe something else on our front page, rather than have to go through one of the two menus, just to have agendas up there, and that would go right straight to it. Meeting agendas as its own tab.
The other thing is that the headings that are at the top are, I forget what they are, but it's called, I'll say something like getting acquainted, or it doesn't really tell you anything. It's very friendly, but it doesn't tell you anything. So the one that leads to this, maybe others too, I don't know, but I haven't checked them out. But it would be nice if it would be more obvious. The other thing maybe that could help would be, sometimes when you click on something, if you right-click on it, it'll give you detail about the places you can go. Does this do that? I didn't check that. Also, you can't do that on if you're on a iPhone, I don't think anyway, because there's no right-click. Android have a right-click? Pardon? You can do, maybe I don't know how to do it on an iPhone, but it needs to be usable for people like me, say, that don't know. So usually if I think if I click on the heading, then it'll give me subheadings and I can pick one.
Yeah, this one you just mouse over it and then the subheadings drop down.
Okay, so maybe I just didn't know that, I don't know.
Yeah, but I think we had talked about at one point, if you mouse over this, that you get a little bubble that says what's in it, and they decided not to do that.
Oh, so it doesn't work?
It currently does not have that functionality.
Okay, so maybe that
I
would,
say it doesn't work. It was never put into the.
I don't mean it's broken, I just mean it doesn't do it. Okay, so maybe it would be, that would solve the, I don't know what would solve the problem the best, but I just know that I had a great frustration trying to find the thing. And even when I found it, what I found was the agendas. Usually, I mean, when I go to things like that, I find agendas, minutes, and, well, if you've got the other thing that would be the video, that would show that. So there'd be 3 things that you could choose to look at if they exist. I mean, they always exist for some agencies, for some items. They may not exist for a particular meeting yet. For example, there's some variations on the theme, but that would be really helpful.
Yeah, so in this case, there's the agenda. So this is the archive. And this is the planning committee. And here's the date of the meeting, the time. This is the agenda.
And what about the things, usually what you want to look at is the agenda and then the supporting documents. Okay, I guess I couldn't tell that very well. Okay, maybe it's just me. Well, it's me. Okay. Didn't work? I can't see.
Well, this is just some licensing issue because it's an Adobe document. So
Adobe doesn't always work on some systems. Okay. Anyway, if we could make that whole thing as user-friendly as possible, I think those of us who aren't techies in the field would appreciate it. At least I would. Okay, we probably spent way more than we needed to in terms of amount of time on that item. So how about we move on to item number 9, which is information regarding transit vehicle boarding safety procedures.
Yeah, so Michael brought this up at the last meeting. This information that Irene is passing out is from BART. They aren't here, but Laura Timothy did some research and brought this to our attention. And so basically, in just reading through this, a lot of the information from a BART train perspective is kind of automated. The doors open automatically. The doors don't close automatically, but the driver would close the doors, but the driver receives a notice automatically when it's time for the train to leave in order to stay on schedule. Then the driver looks out their window and makes sure that, you know, the platform of people trying to board is clear and that the doors are clear, and then he or she will push to close the door. And then once the doors close, the train moves automatically from that point. So it's more of a training situation from their perspective to make sure that, you know, the operators try and give as much, if they see somebody that has a disability or a senior, in case you were asking about seniors, has more time to be able to, you know, get on the train and get seated. And then it talks a little bit about here, and, you know, seats nearest the doors are designated priority seating for seniors. Closing the door announcements made automatically. So a lot of the stuff on BART itself is automated, but this will give you a chance to kind of read through this. And I would suspect, and I'll let, you know, Steve and Laramie talk about, you know, their process. I suspect it's more, and it's as opposed to a policy, it's probably more of the policy is probably safety. The particulars regarding seniors is probably more of a training that occurs with the drivers. Obviously, it's a lot easier on a bus to see if a senior's still standing in the aisle, and I'll let Steve and Laramie comment on that, but I suspect their first choice is obviously to let a senior disabled person be seated before they take off.
How would they know to do that?
On a bus?
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you meant on BART.
No,
you were talking about BART.
No, these are the procedures with respect to BART. And it sounds like there could be some potential issues if once the doors close, if there's just a matter of time and then the train automatically leaves the station. If somebody's still struggling to find a seat, a senior, is there any override of that? And that's not necessarily answered here. So if that's something that's occurring, then that might be a concern.
Isn't this more instructions for a passenger on BART?
There's a few items on here that I think, Michael, when you take people out and use BART, you can let them know like this. There is some. It's not necessarily instructions for passengers. There are some in here if you're working with passengers. There's one in here about trying to get up close to the front of the train as possible so the operator can easily see them and things like that. But for the most part, this is their training procedure that they give to operators regarding passenger boardings. This isn't out of a training manual or anything. This is something that Laura Timothy wrote up based on information she was getting. Laura Timothy is Mallory's opposite at BART. So she's there. She is their accessible. Yeah.
Well, did you want to hear from the fixed route operators on what we do? I mean, AC Transit, we do have operations bulletins. We have an operator's user's guide, and we also offer, we have color-coded flashcards. So before the driver even pulls into the stop, they would know they have to position themselves for a lift ramp. These come in English, Spanish, and Chinese, that they need the kneeler. If so, they have instructions, pull closest to the curb, deploy the kneeler if they need help, can't make that first step into the bus. And then we have a wait. So they see the pink card, the drivers know I'm going to be slow to board, slow to sit down, so please don't leave. And this is in case, they show it, the driver knows what the situation is before he pulls into the stop. And then, again, if there's any language barriers, they know what the color codes mean, and that's how they're trained to respond to Michael's concern about waiting. Now, do they do it all the time? I brought you all can have one if you want.
When do they get those cards?
They can get them. We have them at fairs. We have them in our transit lobby. We have them. We distribute them everywhere. So that's AC Transit.
So do you want to do all the Major J operators?
Well, if they're interested.
So I'll just go around the room, put everybody on the spot.
Okay.
Except the consumers won't put it on the spot. So we'll start with Misha. I do have, who doesn't even know what I said. That's a little hard.
Is she a fixed route operator?
Oh, is it just fixed route?
Yeah, I think.
Oh, okay.
We don't need to do that.
Okay, you guys are off the spot.
We wait till they can get on the vehicle at any pace they would like to.
That's right. That's kind of what I thought you would say.
You want the lift, you get the lift. Whatever you want, you get.
So the only fixed route operator on this side is Mallory, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so moving to the other side, the hot spot. I guess, Steve, you're...
Well, we don't have any cool cards like AC Transit. We just let the drivers assess the situation. There are seniors who get on our buses that like to stand. So if you're sitting there waiting for a senior to make a decision, sometimes they'll just stand, so the operator's all in control. So we pull close to the curb as possible. If we have to move because of a mobility device or a stroller, then we'll readjust the bus. And we'll just let the passenger take their time to get what they need to do.
Okay. And you just got the hotspot, Laramie.
Yeah. Well, we don't have a policy on it. It is something that's addressed in the safety training, and again, the emphasis on is on safety, and it is something that we track in our customer service complaint line. And if there needs to be retraining, there is. But our policy and procedures are similar to Steve's at Tri-Delta, that the driver uses discretion to when the passengers have safely boarded and when it's safe to proceed.
Okay, thank you. So I think that's all the operators. And have we covered what
I would just
the
assume
intent
that
was?
in AC Transit's case, if somebody didn't have the colors, the driver would still assess the situation. And
Absolutely.
yeah. So it's, a common sense type thing for the most part from the driver's perspective.
It
knowing
is,
that
but I think
it's a
this,
safety issue.
we always try to encourage
Right.
the consumers to take responsibility for
Exactly.
the situation.
Well, it certainly helps. I would think it would help everybody know, including the drivers, they're pulling up to the stop, what the expectations are so that they can, prepare to do that rather than just wait and see.
And we do have, there are language barriers.
Okay, go ahead,
Well, I just
Michael.
want to thank you, and this satisfies the question I had, and the internal thing would be, as you were stating, as part of travel training, just, to make sure that people who have, once they get inside the transit vehicle, that they realize they need to be aware, they need to look. Even here it states that, make sure you know where a handle is or where whatever is. And the big issue that brought it up for me was years ago, we had a lady who had a stroke, and she grabbed with the hand that was not really able. That was the problem. So basically her grip did her no good. So you need to work around that too in your travel training. So yeah, thank you.
Debbie?
I will say, in the absence of the attachment, I thought that this was related to transfer trips, and I will reserve my comments that I had prepared for this agenda item, since it's not that, but request that when we get to future agenda items, we might revisit transfer trips.
Okay. Are there any other comments from the board? How about from the audience? Please. And could you state your name, please?
My name is Glenn Mix from Golden Rain Foundation. Besides the boarding, obviously, we give them time to get on and sit down. But if we know that someone needs to get off at a stop and somebody else is there waiting to get on, we train the drivers to hold up on opening the door, wait for the person on the bus to get ready up to the front, so that we avoid a standoff in the aisle, because there's generally more room out on the sidewalk to do that. For the oncoming and outgoing people to pass, let the people off before the people get on and they're dancing in the aisle.
I have a question of that. If the person happens to be in a wheelchair, you do accommodate wheelchairs, right?
Yeah, we accommodate.
So, and you did that procedure, how would the person in a wheelchair get off
Well,
with all those people in the aisle?
that's a different scenario than I'm referring to ambulatory. With wheelchair, we're doing the loading and unloading, so we would unload a wheelchair and then load the next person.
But you can't get the person in a wheelchair if they're required to stay inside the bus. If the other people are all on the bus?
No, you wait. Say I'm getting off the bus, get up, get over to the door before opening the door and having somebody else come on and have them, if they're two ambulatory people meeting in the aisle of the bus, allow people off before letting them.
So if you have a person in a wheelchair,
Okay, this doesn't really apply.
okay, what do you do?
With wheelchairs, we're using the lift on and off out the back door. So we would take the person off and then put the next person on.
After the ambulatory or before?
They're coming through different doors. So
But what, in time, what is it?
the ambulatory people we would let on and let sit down up in the front seat. The wheelchairs are in back, the wheelchair lift doors in back.
It's like they don't cross each other, you're saying? Okay.
They wouldn't cross that.
Thank you. Any more from the audience? Okay. Any more from anyone on this item? Have we covered what people wanted? Okay. So moving on the agenda, there was no SRAC report meeting. There will be later in the month, the end of the month, I believe. So there's no report. Moving on to the Bay Area Partnership Accessibility Committee report. Who does that?
I do.
Okay.
Ms. Mallory Brush. Just real briefly, we met, AC Transit oversees the Regional Transit Discount Card program. We had an update from our customer service manager that oversees that program and received our year-to-date RTC card reports. We get monthly reports from the vendor, Cordoba, who produces all the medically verified cards for us. And the RTC brochure will be going through an update fairly recently, very soon. The DSM codes that we use to determine eligibility on the fixed route system will be moving toward an international code now of diagnosis. So we'll be transferring the DSM codes that we currently use over to an international code, and that has to occur by October of 2015.
I have a question on that. This is for the, whatever the name of that card is.
Regional Transit
Yeah.
Discount Card. Mhm.
So are you doing it automatically, or are you requiring passengers to do something?
No, no, passengers don't have to do anything. It's just transitioning from what we currently have in the brochure as eligible sections to an international standard.
So when those cards for passengers last 3 years, I think?
5 now.
5 now? Okay, so when the person comes back to get recertified, what happens?
Then their doctor will have to certify under an international code that's recognized internationally as opposed to the DSM, which has been a standard for many, many years.
Okay.
And we'll go about this process because we know who we have as certifiers. So we will notify them, these are now the codes that you will have to use in order to make
So
your
it should
patient
be
eligible.
fairly transparent to the
consumer.
users?
Right.
Thank you. Okay, are there any comments? That's the report?
That's it.
Okay, any comments from the board? Any comments from the audience? Okay. Oh, yes, Michael.
Through the chair. Steve, are those the codes that we were talking about coming here? Thank you. We were talking about this issue in the bus company.
Oh, okay. Did we cover what you wanted to talk about? Great. Okay, with that, we will say thank you and move on. The next item is the Senior Mobility Action Council. Who would that be?
Normally it's Rita.
Okay.
Debbie was there.
Thank you, Debbie.
Sure. So we, Ty Boyle actually was there also, who's in our audience today, and he reported out that he and Ray Zanoni are working on, he's a volunteer and member of the SMAC meeting, are working on updating the Way to Go Contra Costa printed and online versions, which is kind of exciting, and gave us an update on that. And he also announced at the meeting that Shirley Hayek, one of our former PCC members, was being honored at the Pleasant Hill City Council for her contribution to starting the senior van program in Pleasant Hill, and we went to that, and it was wonderful. Shirley Crone was our guest speaker. She's a member of the Advisory Council on Aging. She's also one of our elected California senior legislators, and she gave a presentation on the California Senior Legislature, which has been around for 35 years. And it's a non-funded government body that passes legislation relating to seniors. And she let us know that on May 6th, there's going to be a senior rally at the Capitol, and we're going to try and turn out thousands of people from all over the state to talk about what our priorities are for the aging population, including transportation. And then we're putting on an event in 2015 in October related to older drivers' cognition and when it's time to give up the keys and resources. And as we get more information about that, we'll let you know. Yeah, okay, that's it.
I have a question. You said elected body that passes legislation?
Well, they get somebody to author it. So they write the legislation, they get a legislator to adopt their legislation, and it gets passed.
So is the outcome of their voting that it's carried by that legislature?
It goes through the same
legislator?
process. Yeah, it goes through the same process as any bill.
Okay, but the origin is different.
Right, so they come up with priorities. So they may have 50 bills, like any legislator carries 42 bills in a session or something like that. There's only a certain number of them that actually make it through the committees to get to the level of where the votes on the floor happen, and then they have to not get vetoed by the governor. So they go through a similar process. They work with other senators or assembly members, and their legislation gets picked up, and it either passes through or doesn't. But they've been pretty successful when they narrow down their top 10 priorities or something to getting that legislation passed.
Great, thanks. Anything else? Any other comments from the committee? Not seeing any. How about the audience? Okay, then thank you very much. And the next item is funding opportunities. Is that your hand, Mallory? What? 0. Okay, that was a 0. Since I'm not hearing any clamoring, I assume no one else has anything to talk about either. Other than the 5310 is a funding opportunity, right?
That's right, but that cycle is closed.
Okay. And the next item then is future agenda items. I think you had something for us, Debbie.
Transfer trips, if we can just put discussion about transfer trips, because I thought that that's what we were talking about with boarding and exiting, because I was not at the last meeting. My alternate was, I think. But I think that this was something that came up a gazillion years ago, and I don't know that we've ever revisited transfer trips and sort of the issues that were identified with transfer trips and the writer and the impact on the writer of transfer trips. And I'd just like to have a sort of an exploratory discussion about.
So when you say transfer trips, do you mean transfers? What do you mean by it? Let me just ask it that way.
Is it fixed route to paratransit or paratransit to paratransit?
Paratransit to paratransit
Okay.
is what I was referencing.
Okay.
I don't mind broadening that. but
Okay, and then which paratransit operators are you talking about? Just so we know
It
what we're
could be
talking
any
about.
of them. It could be any of them.
Well, I'm trying to.
It could be Tri-Delta to County Connection to West Cat. I mean, it could be any number
Okay, is it the fixed route operators that we're talking about?
of paratransit, yes. I'm talking
So
about
they're
paratransit.
in this county?
Public paratransit.
Okay, so that means, just to let us know what it actually means, it would mean Tri-Delta, County Connection, West Cat, and AC Transit?
East Bay Paratransit.
What did I say? I'm sorry, it's just because you run it. So, is that correct? And is that all it's limited to?
That's what I'm thinking about. I don't need to be limiting.
Okay.
Is there issues between the city operators and the public operators regarding transfers?
Do you even do transfers?
Okay.
You do, oh no, yeah. Yeah, I think you do some.
Well, ours is all,
Oh, not between paratransit.
usually, if they're looking for transfer, then they get themselves on East Bay Paratransit.
The thing you do, I think, is you'll take people to the BART station, for example, but that's not paratransit. It's not paratransit to paratransit. So there doesn't seem, so it seems to be those things, that's what we want to talk about. So do we want to do it by having a little presentation format like we did with ARC, maybe briefer, since there's 4 of them? Is that what you were thinking? Do you want them to do, each of the operators to do a little presentation though, or tell us? I mean, maybe they don't have to do a slideshow, but they would do something verbal. It'd be like going around the table, and each one of them would talk about their program.
About how they do transfers?
Yeah,
Sure.
and I suppose any issues that they had?
Sure.
Is that what you're looking for?
And to discuss it from the writer's perspective. So yes, I would love to hear what policies the different transit providers have around paratransit transfer trips.
And so
from
then after
paratransit
that,
to paratransit.
we would have
Discussion about, yeah.
which would be an automatic thing.
I would think so.
Yeah. So okay.
Just so I can give direction to Tom, are we talking the full transfer experience from call in to return?
Yes.
I mean, how far do we want to go with this?
That's how far.
Okay.
If Debbie doesn't, I do. Because I think
So
that's
not
some
just
of
the physical transfer itself, but the person making the reservation and the coordination with the other agency and all that kind of stuff.
Because that's where some of the problems occur, and it's why personally I won't do that. Because it's too, it takes, I mean, it's not a very good source of a ride.
Okay, so just one concern, and I'll let you folks decide. We've got the Measure J claims, we've got the new member, we've got the paratransit transfers, and we've got what we discussed earlier, the web page. That might be a little much. We might want to push one of those off to the next meeting.
Which one?
Web page.
Okay.
I'm sure Lindsay would be happy to have the extra time to do
Yeah,
research,
that's
so.
fine. And I don't think we want to push her. There's not an urgency
Right, okay.
in the same way. However, I would on this transfer trip thing like to add one that I actually do and do have a problem with at times, which is from the, in my case at least, it's always from BART to paratransit. That's always where the problem area is, and it's because the problem is that I never know where they're going to be. It's the location at the BART station. So I'll get off BART, and it's like, where do I go? And then some of the drivers fight with me over it practically. They tell me it's not, that's their spot, So it's like right here where I have that problem, actually.
Let's just clarify, that's 3 CTA you're talking about, right?
Well, I won't say it's only 3 CTA. It's just that's the only place where I do it that is just a nightmare. Because they act like I don't have, that it's, because there's no space, there's no marked spot for it, unless somebody just snuck one in. But
So you're just talking about a clear pickup location for a paratransit vehicle at the BART stations.
Right, and I would have that
and
question.
signage within the terminal.
I would have that
where to
question
go.
about all operators within the BART service area of which in our county, of which I think there are 3, right? Because Westcat would be covered under the East Bay Paratransit, but we could do that separately at another meeting, if that would help with your concern about scheduling agenda items.
We could probably include that. It depends on how much discussion there is on the other stuff, but we could put it all in there. Let's put it all on that item, and then it'll probably have the discussion, and it will probably carry on the same item at future meetings as well.
And could we, to make it a little easier for people to figure out what they're supposed to do, under the agenda, where it says agenda item on the first, the agenda page, if we could have the sub items, which would be the operators, and then the transfer from BART.
Okay.
Okay. And maybe I've never done I've never done. I'm afraid to do a paratransit to paratransit. So I haven't had any recent experience with it because I got really sick the last time I did it at Paratransit to Paratransit. So I don't know how that goes because I don't do it. It would be interesting to have somebody who does it here, and by that I mean a user.
I'm not a user, but we have participants that we serve who go through this regularly.
So, are you going to be here?
Oh, I plan to be here.
Okay, and now you'll really be here, right? For double sure.
Do my best.
Okay, just if you have the flu, please stay away.
I am medicated. Not the proper way, but you know what I mean.
Yeah. Okay, so that takes care, I believe, of the agenda planning. And any news to share from anybody on the committee? Michael?
60 seconds maximum.
Okay.
I just wanted to thank AC Transit for sending me a link to the Transit Driver Appreciation Day website. And I have little thank you for transit operator little cards here if anybody would be interested. What I'm going to do at the senior center is when I go there tomorrow for my transit day, I'm going to say, Wednesday is this. Pass these out to people when they get on their paratransit vehicles, or if they're taking fixed route, just hand it to a driver. It says thanks for keeping us moving, or thank you for my driver. So just wanted to let you know that.
I think that's great. I'm going to hand them out at work for our participants. Are you Facebooking that?
Do you have enough to just give everybody a set?
Try Delta.
Mhm.
And try Delta. We friended you, so we watch you. We expect to see it. We expect to see it on there.
Thank you. So Mallory,
Yes, ma'am.
if I were to turn around at AC Transit and give a driver one of these, would they have a clue about what to do with it? Or this one?
No, but they'd appreciate the gesture.
Okay. So our next meeting is on May 18th. Please put it on your agenda, and for everyone on that subcommittee on the selection of people to be on the committee here, you need to come a half hour early, and it'll be on the agenda that goes out too, or at least a separate something or another.
We'll make sure they know.
Okay, thank you. With that, did we forget anything? I don't think so. So the meeting is adjourned, and thank you very much for coming.
Happy St. Patrick's Day.
Uh-huh.